Wow, that was not great to put it lightly. Okay, hi, VGT Adam here. I just recently watched the Square Enix E3 presentation. Um I do have, like I said in my Microsoft video, if you've watched that, I do have a reaction, just not on my channel. It's probably going to be on a different channel once it uploads. Once it uploads, I'll have a link in the description, and you can also check out my playlist and the reactions list to see that. But woof, this Square Enix one was not great. Like, ugh, there was like one thing that got me excited, and there was one thing that I was excited for, and then I wasn't, and I'll explain that later. But it wasn't great. So it started off with a trailer for Guardians of the Galaxy, which I first thought, like probably everyone else maybe might have watched it, that was an expansion to the Avengers game, because I mean it makes the most sense. It turns out it is its own action adventure game. I don't know how I feel about it, because right now only Star-Lord's playable, and it looks like a generic third-person shooter with some minimal melee combat. It doesn't look great. Like, graphically it looks good, and the art style is also pretty good, but I hate the character designs. Like, Drax and maybe Groot. No, Star-Lord, Drax, and maybe Groot are the good ones, and then fucking Mantis, Gamora, and Rocket look terrible. They look so bad. Like, oh my god, Gamora's design is actually the worst. Oh, I hate the way she looks in this game. Like, even in Infinite, she looked better. Oh my god. But yeah, it's an action-adventure Guardians of the Galaxy game. Don't know too much about it. It's not an Avengers expansion. It's its own thing. That's cool. But I hate the fact that they're like trying to, the whole thing of like, oh, we want you to play as the underdog. Hate to tell you, but because of the Marvel MCU, they're not underdogs anymore. They're very well known. They're not like rooting for these people we don't know. We know them at this point, especially since they're using the movie Guardians, as opposed to like other Guardians that have been in the group before. So I don't know. It looked really generic to me. Like the graphics look good and the art style is fine, but the character designs and the gameplay looks so weak. I'm not really too excited for this at all. They did show off a good amount of gameplay. I kind of like the choice-based stuff. I hope it goes somewhere with that, and it's not just like, oh, we just have choice-based just because, and maybe two endings, but like, I hope it goes somewhere, but I don't really see a point to it at the moment. But I'm not too excited for this Guardians game. They also have a mobile pixel remaster of the first 6 Final Fantasy games, which, okay, I mean, alright. I mean, Steam and mobile, not just mobile, Steam also, but like, alright, it's the first 6 games. Another Mana remake, Legend of Mana. So they had Secret, Trials, and now Legend, so I guess the series is now good for remakes. Never really played any of them, so I don't have much to say. They showed off more of the actual Avengers expansion stuff, which I have nothing else left to say on that game. I really don't care. The Wakanda stuff does look cool, but I really just don't care. I think enough has been said about the game at this point. Graphically, it looks fine, because you know the graphics always look good in that game, but whatever. Showed off Near Reincarnation. I don't care too much. They showed a bunch of mobile games, like Final Fantasy First Soldier. Ugh. Okay. So, they showed off Babylon's Fall, which I didn't think this was going to be Square Enix. I thought it was just Platinum doing their own thing, and then the fact that it was going to be a Square Enix presentation is like, oh, okay, so team about Square Enix again. Nier Automata is great. Favorite soundtrack of all time, and also just a great game. Platinum and Square seem to be a good team, even though Yoko Taro has nothing to do with this game. This could be a good one. And for the longest time, since it was first announced in, 2018, I think, I was excited. I didn't know much about it, but it's a Platinum action game. From what little I saw, it looked cool, right? So, the art, the shading, like the art style they have, it's not really self-shaded. It's kind of like, I don't know, like a storybook pastel kind of thing. And because of that, it kind of makes the character models look ugly. Like for the environment, it looks unique, but for the character models, it makes them look kind of ugly. But I kind of like the whole pastel like storybook look to it. One thing that was new for this trailer is that it showed off multiplayer. Is that you can play this game single player and multiplayer, which was cool. I thought that'd be a really cool thing. I would like Anarchy Reigns, but like the whole focus of single player is also that, not just like single player and separate multiplayer brawling kind of thing. That could be kind of cool. And I saw like different classes, and the combat was still interesting. I think it's a lot of the same people who worked on Automata, because they made a point of like pointing that out a little later on. And the fact that like floating weapons, which I'm not sure how I feel about that. But they have different classes. So it's not just everyone wears wields a sword. Like you saw bow and arrows, you saw hammers, I think there's like a spear thing at some point. There's some variety. And the combat looked great, because of course it does. It's Platinum. They usually always look good. Boss fights look insane. Yeah, something about the shading just makes the character models don't look the best. But then they decided to do a developer interview really quick. And that is where my interest just actually tanked. Like, for the longest time I was hyped for this game, I was excited to follow it, and now I honestly couldn't give two shits about it. And why is that? Well, it was the same thing that made me not want to play the Avengers game. And I don't know how many people have been around with this channel for a while who might know about my interests. But let me just try and go with the trailer, make sure. Become stronger. Yeah, I know. Okay, the art style, which, yeah, the art style is great. So where's the line? There's the line. Okay. So this game is developed as a live service title. It's a games as a service game. That was the main thing, besides how bad the gameplay kind of looked. That was the main thing that took me off from Avengers when I was first excited for that game. And then when I saw gameplay, like, it looks great. Combat's a little meh. Oh, it's a games as a service game, meaning that the base game is going to have nothing and they'll add a lot more content later, which obviously is what's happening right now. Babylon's Fall is doing the same thing. So I'm not opposed to a multiplayer game, or maybe a game where they might add content after. But before the game is even out and it's confirmed to be live as a service game, you lost me. I'm done. Like, even with Monster Hunter, they're technically live service games, but like they still have full done content where if you don't want to do the DLC or expansions, you don't have to. You can enjoy the game as is. But like even with Avengers, like that game is so grindy, and that main campaign is like not worth it at all. Now maybe this one could be more like Monster Hunter, where you can just play the game on its own. You don't have to worry about the live service game. But as soon as I heard live service game, games as a service game, just there goes all my hype. I might check out how people play this game, like look up streams and stuff when it comes out, but I do not care about Babylon's Fall anymore, and that's the most disappointing thing. I was so excited, and if that reaction video gets uploaded, you'll just hear how much excitement just drained out of me. You kind of hear my voice right now, how raspy it is, because I'm just so angry. But there's also something that got me excited, but I'll get to that later. Yeah, it's a live service title. I think it's Platinum's first like full on like live service thing. But I don't know. That just bummed me out immediately. So even if the game turns out to be cool, that whole live service thing is just, I don't want games to be doing this. If it's something that seems like it could work single player, don't force live service stuff into it. Live service is usually more for like multiplayer based games. Like games are usually more popular in the online sphere than on the single player. But like things are like single player, like you don't need this. It's I'm gonna move on because I don't want to look at that anymore. So then they also showed Life is Strange Remaster, which I never played any Life is Strange game, never planned to, but like this remaster is like wholly unnecessary. Like there was barely any improvement in the visuals, because Life is Strange has like a art style that doesn't really need to be remastered, because it's an art style that can make the game look good for a long time. One more cel shaded looks that makes so many games look good. So there was no reason for this remaster. And then they also showed off the new one, True Colors, which I am still just kind of impartial to. So yeah, they showed off stuff about True Colors, which I just couldn't care less about. And then there was the final thing that the show had, which this was a pretty short show, honestly. But then the final thing they had, which actually got me interested, was that rumored Final Fantasy Origins game, the Souls-like Final Fantasy game, is real. It's a Souls-like Final Fantasy. It's made by Team Ninja, although it plays a lot more like... It looks like it plays like Nioh more than like Dark Souls, which makes sense because it's Koei Tecmo and Team Ninja. But I don't know with the name Origin if it's like a prequel to Final Fantasy 1 or if it's like a reboot of Final Fantasy 1, because this is very clearly like it seems like this might be in the world of Final Fantasy 1, or at least something related to it, because it's something that happens later in the trailer. But when we come in, we see these three people. Let's see if I can get this going correctly. We see these three people, blonde-haired guy that looks like just blonde core from Final Fantasy 15. The red-haired one, which I thought was Fighter, but I guess not. And then some black one. And I don't think they're like specific classes, because it shows in the trailer that you can switch between like different weapons, and they might be like different classes and stuff. So I don't think they're like specific classes. But yeah, it's a Souls-like Final Fantasy. It's just weird because Final Fantasy is rated an RPG series, and now it's taken from another RPG series that's like completely different. But it's pretty cool. I'm kind of interested. It looks like it's gonna be rated M, which is also cool. I'm liking these darker Final Fantasy ones. I don't think all of them should turn to the darker side. You should have some more lighthearted ones, but I'm liking this darker take on things. But the combat looks really fast paced and fun. They have like these really cool like execution moves that they turn enemies into crystals, because Final Fantasy. You can like change armor and everything, so that's really cool. And they kept talking about how, like, that's right, there was like a mini boss or a full on boss fight against some Griffin with armor on it. They kept talking about how they're Guardians of Light and how they're there to defeat Chaos. And then we see Garland from Final Fantasy 1 on his throne, and he has a look that's similar to his Dissidia look. And he's voiced by Chris Sabat, so it's Garland. It's full on Garland. Now Chris is actually, voicing him in a more proper Final Fantasy game, not just a fighting game spinoff. And yeah, you're having a Souls-like fight against Garland, which is cool. But because Garland's there, it's making me think, like, is this a reboot of Final Fantasy 1? Is this, like, a prequel? Does this take place literally at the end of that game, and then this is going to continue onwards? Like, that's what's more interesting to me. Like, the combat still was great. The combat was great. The art style is a little too realistic for my taste. I wish they did something a little more stylized. But yeah, like, and there's also a part where you try to sucker punch Garland. It's so cool. But, like, yeah, you have to fight against Garland. This is the thing that got me the most excited. Like, this was the best thing of the Square Enix show for me. Like, being able to fight Garland in a more proper way than just a fighting game is, oh god, that's so cool. Yeah, it's officially called Stranger of Paradise Final Fantasy Origin, and the logo looks like Garland turning into Chaos or something like that. So I'm not sure what it's going to be about. I don't know where the story's going to go, because they didn't show off enough besides what I'm thinking it's going to be. The gameplay looks like Nioh, just with Final Fantasy aesthetic and everything. I hope it's a little more unique and not just a Nioh reskin gameplay-wise. It's coming out next year, but there's going to be a demo for PS5 soon, apparently. So let's hope that gets good people like it, so maybe I might pick it up because it's the most interesting thing. But yeah, so far Xbox is like the best conference. Ubisoft is a little behind them, and then way at the bottom is Square. I really hope that Nintendo can pick this up easily. This show is not the best. There was one thing that excited me, which was Final Fantasy Origin, and then I was excited for Babylon's Fall, and then it died so hard for me, so hard. But yeah, that was Square Enix. Their E3 shows, for some reason, are just always lacking. Like, once, I think it was like one time, maybe it was one of the better ones. But their E3 shows are just so lacking. I don't know what's going on with them. Like, I get, like, Final Fantasy 16 might be too early to show. I get that. That's fine. Integrate just came out, so we're not going to have much on that, and we're not going to have much on Final Fantasy Remake Part 2. 7 Remake Part 2. That's fine. I know BK Null, Poltergeist, whatever name he's using right now, Bryce, he want more in the Dragon Quest game, but that was just announced, so I didn't expect that to happen. But like, they just didn't really have much. Like, I'm surprised that people were excited for this E3. Like right now, the only thing that's gonna excite me, hopefully, is Nintendo. But even then, like I'm still being cautious because of how like overall meh this has been. Like even Xbox has been the best one, it's still kind of meh E3. So I don't know. What I took away from this, that Final Fantasy Origin I'm gonna follow. So those are my thoughts on the so disappointing Square Enix conference. I'm gonna try for Nintendo next. That might be a little late. Same with the Capcom one. Capcom's more accurately the next one. I'll have a thoughts on that. That's going to be late. I will try for Nintendo. That might be late. Might not. I'm not sure. And then maybe even Bandai Namco. So we'll see. We shall see.